Hi everyone, Todd Urban here from TRU Financial Coaching. It's been a little while since I posted a video on Facebook, but thought I would do one here today. And this might be the first of maybe two or three in a row on just the topic of inflation. We got some good news Wednesday of this week that for the month of July, the inflation rate was zero. Basically just meaning that a basket of common expenses from the end of June to the end of July remained flat and is up 8.5% over last year. So really the inflation rate for the end of July was 8.5% because we typically quote inflation in terms of an annual perspective. But in July, it was heavily driven by gas prices coming down and a lot of other household expenses going up. Food was up a full percentage point still, which obviously is hitting, all of our wallets pretty heavily. I think we see that every time we go to the grocery store. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about inflation, and in today's video, I'm just going to present one idea to think about that maybe you can take advantage of if you're able to. Oftentimes when we think, how do we hedge against inflation? Or how do we take advantage of inflation or protect ourselves against inflation? And gold has historically been what comes to mind. That's become less true over the really the last 20, 30 years than it maybe had been in the in the 1900s. But as an example, so inflation's up 8.5% year over year. Gold is flat year over year, and gold is basically down a little bit if you go back 2 years ago. So down about 5% roughly. Gold's about $1,800 an ounce right now. It was essentially $1,800 an ounce a year ago, $1,900 an ounce 2 years ago. So gold certainly during this inflationary period has not been a hedge. But the one thing I want to talk about in this video is something that I have purchased. Just caveat out there, I have bought this, but I'm putting my money where my mouth is, basically. And that is U.S. government issued inflation bonds, or I-bonds they're called. So how these work, they have the same credit risk of any U.S. T-bill, T-note, T-bond, which from a global perspective is considered risk-free. You're taking the risk that the U.S. government will be able to pay back its debt obligations. So risk-free, just like any T-bill, T-note. Now, a 10-year T-note today is you'll make about 2.9%, 2.8%. 30-year T-bond about 3.3%. So nothing to get too excited about. I-bonds right now are paying 9.62%. So almost triple the interest rate, or roughly triple the interest rate, but for the same credit risk. So I think, okay, what's the catch? So the catch is really just kind of like, well, it's a catch only if you're okay with limitations. So you can only put $10,000 into an I-bond per calendar year. If that's not a problem for you, then that's not really a restriction for you. But $10,000, you have to buy and sell these through the government. So you open up an account at treasurydirect.gov. And you can just simply buy it, hook up your bank account, buy it, and sell it from there. So got to do it through treasurydirect.gov. Can't do more than 10,000 in a year, and you cannot sell it within the first 12 months. So you have to lock it up for 12 months. So you wouldn't want to put money into an I-bond that you're going to need back, or you think you might need back at all in the next 12 months. And then after 12 months, you can sell it. But if you sell it before 5 years from when you bought it, you'll lose 3 months worth of interest. But of course, if you're thinking alternatively, I might buy something else, losing 3 months of interest on such a high yielding bond isn't that huge of a penalty. So it's a great, and this 9.62% is locked up through the end of October. And it recalculates its rate every 6 months. So November 1st, it'll be a new 6-month rate for the next 6 months. So until May of next year. And then it resets. And one of the main factors that has it resetting is what the inflation rate is. So if inflation would, kind of remain where it's at or go up, you'll continue to see high yields. If inflation would go essentially down to zero for an extended period of time, we go into a no inflation period, then you might see the rates on these things mimic very closely to a similar or normal treasury note or treasury bond. So anyway, during a period of high inflation, getting 9.62% on a risk-free investment, just like any T-bill T-note is, that's pretty attractive. You just need to be able to lock your money up for at least a year and ideally 5 years. But again, the penalty of 3 months lost interest on a high yielding bond like this isn't that much of a penalty. So something to think about. If you want to learn more, go to treasurydirect.gov and check out iBonds, or U.S. government inflation bonds. All right. I'll be back shortly with another video on some other inflation tips.